Hello, my name's Galena. I'm the fiance of Joshua Lee McCollister, who was murdered on July 8th by Deunn Willis and robbed by Danielle Durand. So, coming back to that concept of gang stalking, I hadn't heard of it before Josh's mom brought it up to me, and I said, after seeing one YouTube video, yes, that's definitely what we were going through. And somebody on my page said, there's kind of like a government element to this, and I read a bit more about it, and I wanted to address this. It's really hard for me to say anything against Mendocino County law enforcement because I'm a very back the blue type of girl. And a lot of the reason is because when I was a little girl, to my mind, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Department saved my life. My dad was off of his rocker and they went in and they got me out. I was 3 years old. To this day, I'd love to shake the hands of the officers who did that and say thank you for saving my life. And when law enforcement saves your life, you just think differently about them, I think. There's a degree of gratitude you're always going to have. A different perspective. That said, it's just a cold hard fact that I wrote emails to FBPD more than once about the level of fear that Josh and I had, that we were straight up afraid for our lives, that we were going to be murdered because the stalking situation was so bad, and I named names in those emails. And I also put in an email to FBPD that the enabler had committed a felony, which the felony she committed, I haven't gotten around to it yet, but it made it so much more likely that something horribly violent was going to happen to me at the hands of the instigator. So much more likely. FBPD has this stuff. They know. And there's, I think, a lot of really good officers that work for FBPD. I mean, you can just look in their eyes and you can see that they care. And regarding everything with my father, I don't think that there is anything more that some of these people would like than to bring a missing girl back to her family for burial. I think that if they had any clue how to go about doing that, they'd be out there with a pickaxe and shovel, in a heartbeat. That's what they want to do. They want to help. They want to pursue justice. Unfortunately, there are people that are always going to be bureaucrats. And just because you have good officers working the streets does not mean that the people that make the decisions up at the top are also good people. And a concern that Josh and I both had while all this stalking was going on and we weren't being helped, was that perhaps someone high-ranking up at the top had made the decision that nothing was going to happen about us being stalked. Because, you see, my father could have been caught back in the 90s. He could have been caught. Like, if you look at the documentation, he and Julius Durand, back in the 90s, both of them almost were caught. And there are names in those documents. People that worked in Mendocino County that are effectively the reason they didn't get caught, because they were lazy. They didn't do their job. So if I'm discredited, or if something happens to me, well, they're never going to be embarrassed for letting a serial killer go. so long as I stay alive, their reputations are always going to be in danger. Were they responsible for the stalking? No. But somebody made the decision to not do anything about it. And I don't think that it was any of the officers that worked the streets in Fort Bragg. Somebody made the decision that this was just going to happen to us. That's my opinion anyway. It's the same thing I'd say about the sheriff's department, you know, in that very famous statement that someone there gave out. Every officer I have spoken to that works at the sheriff's department, my impression walking away is that this was a good officer who wanted nothing more than to do the right thing and did everything to the best of his ability to pursue justice for these victims. Unfortunately, they aren't the ones who ultimately get to make those decisions. It's the high-ranking individuals and judges that make those decisions. So I have that to say. The other thing I'll say about it regarding the gang stalking angle, the people that were coming at us weren't like reputable people. I mean, even the enabler who has all this power and influence right now, you go back in time, she was a heroin dealer. Like, you have to go back, long time ago. But she knows the drug world very well. That's all of these people were either dealers or addicts. And, you know, when you have this many dealers and addicts that are coming at you, the likelihood that somewhere in there's going to be a CI, confidential informant for the cops, it's not that completely impossible. And that's what Josh's concern was, that a couple of these people that were coming at us, they were being allowed to come at us because essentially they were confidential informants for the cops regarding fentanyl deals or meth deals that were going on in Mendocino County. And, you know, the thing about that is there's no way to confirm it. Like, I didn't know this at the time, but even if a confidential informant goes to the cops and, like, signs a waiver, it still might not be information that will ever come out. The cops, even then, with the waiver, might not say, yes, this person is a confidential informant. But, you know, of these dealers, I know that several of them were arrested on multiple occasions, given slaps on the wrist, and just went back into Fort Bragg society to sell more fentanyl, to sell more meth. And, you know, there gets to be a point at which where you just say, why are they being given a slap on the wrist? And, who knows? You know, I confronted one of them about this, and I just flat out said, are you a CI? Is that why you got away with all this crap against us? Or the cops just trying to keep you happy so you could rat out some other fentanyl dealer or something? And the individual kind of laughed at me. He said, nobody cares about dealing drugs in Mendocino County. The Emerald Triangle in general, you know, nobody cares. And, you know, this is not my world. You know, I've lived a clean life. I've never done drugs. I don't drink. None of that stuff. I made that decision in grammar school. I would stay away from all that stuff. So how the heck do I know if any of these people are rats? It's not my field, and I don't want it to be my field. But, you know, that was Josh's opinion, that one or two of the people that were coming at us, the reason that they were being allowed to come at us was because they were CIs. So, do I think that the government was like following us and like scrambling our brains or something? No, I don't. I don't think that Josh really thought that either. It's just, why is it that I can say to a good man in law enforcement. I really believe this is a good person. He just had that vibe. Why is it that I was able to say to him that so-and-so committed a felony, something that would put her in prison for years? He didn't investigate it. He didn't question her. He didn't question any of the people involved. Don't tell me that law enforcement wouldn't be very happy to make an arrest for something that will put someone in prison for years. Of course they would. That's great for them. And it didn't happen. And because that didn't happen, I got hurt. I got hurt badly. And I still have to be in fear all the time because this was just not investigated. You know, one other thing I'd say about law enforcement, you know, people wouldn't have thought of this. Josh was also, in a lot of ways, back the blue. Like, there were a couple cops on that he thought just so highly of at FBPD. And one thing about these stalkers they probably don't realize is Josh had told me if there was ever any kind of problem, like anything, just get out your phone and record it. Don't intervene. Don't involve yourself. But if I'm having a problem, just get out your phone and record it. So one thing about all this stalking that we undergone that they probably don't realize, I have 4 of these bastards on camera. And I don't mean for like far away, you can't make them out. No, they're identifiable. They're identifiable. And the audio is just fine. And I've made sure that in the event that anything does happen to me, people who are capable of investigating such things, who actually will investigate such things, they have this footage with the clearly identifiable faces. See, that's the thing about someone terrorizing you on a regular basis. You know, you make those, you go through those steps you need to do. In case something happens to me, these people are going to be so screwed. They have no idea. There was a time that Josh was attacked. And one of the things that he said during this attack, which I have on camera, first off, he says to his assailant repeatedly, agree to walk away peacefully. Will you walk away, brother? Guy wouldn't agree to do it. So Josh was restraining him and said, well, we'll wait for the cops to arrive. Josh respected law enforcement a lot more than people would have thought. It's like, I've always respected law enforcement a lot more than people seem to think I would. Because they put their lives on the line. And you gotta respect that. And I'm just so hopeful the fact that I have these bastards on camera. Maybe nothing happened while Josh McCollister was alive. And that stalking situation in Mendocino County put him on the road to his death in Humboldt County because he was desperately trying to find a way for his wife, future wife, and his babies to get away from all of this. But maybe now that he's passed on and it can't help him, maybe it will send a message out to the people in Mendocino County that like to stalk. You know what? This is not the 1980s. People have phones. They can record this crap. And there will be accountability at some point. He didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve this. We were fighting for justice. We were trying to ensure that the right thing happened. We didn't deserve to be trying to solve a serial killer case and having to get stalked the whole darn time. The whole time that was going on. The entire time, every single day, we lived in fear. And FBPD knows that we were living in fear because they have it in writing. They have it in an email. They have it in more than one email. And he still deserves justice.